Welcome to Commanders Daily, everybody. I'm Bob Matthews. This is your one-stop shop for everything going on with the Burgundy and Gold. Don't forget, hit that like and subscribe button so you don't miss a minute of it. About 3 weeks or so, give or take a few days, until rookies report to training camp. And until then, we are still looking at all that content creation that is out there, people looking for clicks. And because of that, as we always say, if it pops up there and it catches our eye, we're going to let you guys know about it and try to cut through at least the headlines and the bull and give you the straight scoop on it. So the reason I said consider the source on our first topic today is because it's about whether the Commanders will take a step back or not this year. I say consider the source because it was written by the phillyvoice.com. Now, it was a fairly decently written article, nouns, verbs, and adjectives, but I got to take issue with at least some of the stats and the history that they use to, kind of say, well, this is why. The writer, whose name is Jimmy Kempski, listed a graph with 14 teams on it since the 16-game schedule started in 1978 that had an 8-game improvement from one year to another. And in a majority of those, in fact, in all but, 2, there was a regression. Now, in and of itself, you would say, ooh, that kind of sounds bad. But if you look a little bit deeper into it, it's a real mixed bag as to is it a guarantee and how, bad of a thing this is. And I will give you some examples of that. One of the first team he lists is the Cowboys from 2015, 16, and 17. They went from 13-3 to 9-7. Okay, yeah, I get that. There are some other ones, though, once you get into it, that are a little misleading. For instance, the Colts from 1998, 1999, and 2000. That's when Peyton Manning was making his ascension into being one of the league's best teams. And the bar was pretty low, considering they started 2-14. Once he hit his stride, though, they went 13-3, and then the following year went 10-6. And if I remember correctly, still went to the playoffs. I'd take a 10-7 season this year and going back to the playoffs. Remember, this is not going to be a straight line, back to contention. You also had the Rams, the greatest show on turf from 1998 to 2000. 13-3 one year, 10-6 the next. Well, I'm sure that part of that reason was, and what's not mentioned is, Dick Vermeil retired after the 99 season when they won the Super Bowl. Mike Martz took over. New head coach. The Pittsburgh Steelers, 2004, they go 15-1. Ben Roethlisberger's rookie year. I'll take the 2004 to 2005 Steelers scenario because in 2005, they only won 11-5. Lost 4 more games. But what you're leaving out there is that was also the year they won the Super Bowl. Okay, not too bad a deal there. Some other ones, the 2019 49ers to the 2020 49ers. Jimmy Garoppolo, the starting quarterback, is hurt. Nick Mullins, their backup, starts most of the year. So, yeah, there's going to be a regression there. Same thing with the Miami Dolphins from 2008 to 2009. Chad Pennington, their starting quarterback, hey, not a guy that's, we're not talking one of the all-time greats, but still starting quarterback hurt most of the year. Yeah, God forbid Jaden Daniels goes down. I would expect the record to be less this coming year than it was last year. But that's something you can't plan for. And, hey, so like I said, I don't think you got to look at that and say, it's an automatic guarantee that they're going to regress substantially. Again, if it's a 1 or 2 game regression or even a 3 game regression, I'm fine with that as long as we see that the team is progressing in a way that's building a championship contender for years to come. I also think it's a little bit of whistling past the graveyard for anybody in Philly because I think the Eagles, while a great team last year, that's something that's an environment that could go south real quick and real bad. So I would take that with a grain of salt. A couple other news and notes out there. New draft room in Ashburn was dedicated earlier this week, and a really nice touch by Josh Harris and company, naming it the Bobby Beathard draft room. For those of you too young to remember, Beathard was the GM in Ashburn from 1978 to 1988, the primary architect behind all of those Super Bowl teams in the Joe Gibbs era. Yes, I know Charlie Casserly was the GM for the 91 team, but again, a lot of the personnel, the majority of the personnel there still had Beathard's stamp on them. But really nice that they are, again, leaning into tradition, trying to help build the brand that way, and just a really nice, classy touch to name it after Beathard. Marshawn Lattimore had an interesting quote in a story that I saw yesterday talking about Trey Amos. We have talked about Amos and how good that he looked in minicamp and in OTAs, and he's getting some high praise from Lattimore as well. In fact, Lattimore said this. This is a story in rigosrag.com you may want to check out. But he said, quote, his technique is there. From what I can see, he looks complete. He's a rookie, and it's early, but throughout the season, I feel like he's going to keep that up and get better and better as the season goes. That is pretty high praise coming from a guy that is a four-time All-Pro. And if he's got that kind of confidence in a rookie, remember, he didn't have to say any of that, but he did. I would say that that means Marshawn Lattimore thinks that Troy Amos is going to be a contributor right off the bat, and he should know. And finally, a couple of interesting tidbits from our friend Ben Standig at The Athletic, talking about the defensive line and why perhaps they didn't really go after, big time an edge rusher. And that's because it is possible that the moves they did make are going to solve an even bigger problem, which was the run defense. Standig says, if you look at who they got between Javon Kinlaw, Dietrich Wise, Eddie Goldman, who is never going to, again, I know he's not going to make anybody forget Deacon Jones or anything, but you pair the three of them with Deron Payne and Dorrance Armstrong and Johnny Newton, a much bigger interior defensive line. And if that helps the run defense, that in turn may very well help the pass defense. And again, while it is, a throwers league these days, one of the things you don't want is, especially in the fourth quarter, if you are down and needing to stop, you do not want a team that you play in to be able to bleed the clock dry and keep your best weapons, your offense, off the field for a chance at a game-winning touchdown. So, it is possible. We'll have to see. And again, this becomes a lot more clear once training camp starts. Still would not be surprised to see him pick up a veteran pass rusher if one becomes available once roster moves start being made. All right, that's going to do it for us. Again, hit that like and subscribe button. Make sure that you don't miss a day of this. We will see you again tomorrow. Remember, like the wise man once said, if you're out on your bike tonight, as always, do wear white.